Hey everyone, this is Leanne from Of Love and Shiplap and the founder of Sub That Tutorials and More. Please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you never miss out on any new videos, and check the video description for a link to the Sub That Learning Library app. Inside of our mobile/web app, you can access all of our free tutorials and our neatly organized content libraries, as well as choose to subscribe for access to exclusive content such as our various master classes and our communities for help, support, and sharing. In this tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how to sublimate an aluminum water bottle or stainless steel water bottle in the convection toaster oven using shrink wrap. Now, there are a lot of different water bottles on the market for sublimation, and this is just one style that is out there, but the process is pretty much the same for all of them. The difference might really just be the size of the design. So we're going to go ahead and turn things around. I'll show you the water bottle we're doing today, and we will get those measurements and set up our design in Affinity Designer. Here is a look at this type of sublimation water bottle. It has a pop-up spout, and it does have a small straw inside that attaches right in that hole. Now, this particular water bottle is all aluminum. Another one that we've done has a plastic screw area, so that one couldn't be done in a convection toaster oven, but this one, because it is all aluminum, can be. Now, one of the things we want to pay attention to is how this rounds right here. We don't want our design to extend past that little edge right there where it starts to round, because that's going to cause our paper to crinkle when we put that shrink wrap on, and then we're going to get that uneven transfer, that warbling that people sometimes call ghosting. It is called warbling. So let's go ahead and get those measurements. As usual, this design is just going to be a rectangle, but we do want to make sure that everything is sized accordingly. So go ahead and wrap our tape measure around. And we have 9 1/8. And then we're measuring from where it starts to round, which is pretty far down. It's actually right there. So we're going to go with 5 3/8 for our design, because we have that rounding at the bottom as well. So we have 5 3/8 for our height, 9 1/8 for our width. So again, our design is just going to be a rectangle that we can wrap around here. This particular item would also fit in a mug press if you weren't doing something that was full bleed. You definitely have some options there. Let's go ahead and get our design set up in Affinity Designer. Setting up our design is going to be quick and easy in Affinity Designer. I'm using the Windows version of the software, but if you are using the Mac version, you may notice some small differences in your Studio interface. All of the steps that we'll be following today can still be followed easily within the Mac version as well as the Windows version. We want to start by opening up a new document that is the page size that we intend on printing on and is in the orientation that the paper feeds into our printer. Based on the measurements for our stainless steel water bottle, we are going to go with a letter size document. Come to File and then New or New Document and select Letter from the presets, or you can manually set your measurements underneath the Layout tab. You do want to make sure that your DPI is set to 300. Underneath the Color tab, your color format should be set to RGB/8 for sublimation, and your color profile should be sRGB IEC 61966-2.1. This is the most up-to-date color profile for the RGB/8 color format. If you are using an older Mac computer, you may face some color discrepancy issues, especially if you have an older Mac computer and a converted sublimation printer. If you are facing that obstacle, then try the older color profile, which is Adobe RGB 1998. Again, that is specifically for Mac users with converted sublimation printers for the most part. As for everyone else, this setting should be correct for you and your printer, regardless of what printer you are using. Keep in mind that your color profile is not the same as your ICC profile. An ICC profile dedicated by your specific ink and printer is going to be selected during your printer properties when you go to print.
If you need more clarity on what all of these terms mean and how they impact your color, or if you're struggling with color accuracy with your sublimation printer, be sure to check out the Mastering Sublimation Color series in the Sub That Learning Library app. This is a quick and easy series that walks you through how to master your sublimation colors and understand the different variables and how they impact the output of your ink and ultimately your press. Once you have your settings in place, you can go ahead and click Create. Now, I already have my design sized and ready to go for this particular project, but if you don't have your design sized and ready to go, or you're trying to use a photo or a digital paper, you want to start by creating a rectangle using your rectangle tool so that you have something to clip your design into and make sure that it is cropped accordingly to fit your water bottle. You will do that by selecting the rectangle tool from your tools panel and then simply click and drag to make that shape on your document. Now, if you don't see it hanging off the edges like I do here, that means that your work is clipped to the canvas. Simply come to View, View Mode, and then make sure that Clip to Canvas is deselected. When it is selected, you can't see anything off the edges of your document, and when it is deselected, you can. I go back and forth between these two settings. It kind of depends on what my workflow is. Next, we're going to take our rectangle and come to that transform panel, and we're going to set the measurements based on what we measured with our water bottle. So for the width, that is 9.125. And for our height, that is going to be 5.375. Do make sure that your aspect ratio is unlocked when you are setting those measurements so that it is accurately resized. So now if you wanted to do any kind of a digital paper or a photograph or anything like that, you would clip that into this rectangle, and this is going to give you the cropping that you need for whatever it is that you're using to work on your water bottle. So as I mentioned, I already have a design set up for this. So when you want to import your graphic or your digital paper, you're going to come to that Place tool, which is the picture icon in your Tools panel, or you can come to File and then Place. Your File Explorer is going to open up and you can select your design. When you see that downward arrow with the portal, your design is ready to place. You can do one click to import it at full size, or you can click and drag. Now I'm going to do one click because I did already get this sized up accordingly. I'm going to rotate this just so I can line it up with this little rectangle here. And you'll notice that if I zoom in so you can see a little bit better, my rectangle, the blue line, see it, that I just made is a little bit smaller than my actual design. I always like to have my designs just a little bit bigger so I have room to trim them and make sure that we get a nice closed seal. I do not worry myself about having a faint white line or not having a seamless seal. In general, I don't even do seamless full wrap designs because it's just not worth the stress. And there can be manufacturing variations with items like this where from one to the next they can be off by a 1/32 of an inch. It could be something really small that makes it less capable of having a seamless look. So I don't worry about seamless look. I don't think that's a realistic standard to have with this type of printing. Most seamless items that you see are done with UV printing or hydro dipping, two very different processes from sublimation. So I always like to make sure that my designs have a little bit extra so I have room to trim them and make sure that I don't have a sharp white line coming through or anything weird. So mine's a little bit bigger, which is perfectly fine. What I also want you to see about this design is that I didn't want to have a harsh line at the top and bottom, so I actually used this ripped edge look. And you can kind of see that ripped edge. Maybe if I change this to like, there we go. If I change the color of my rectangle, you can see that ripped edge that I've got. So I just wanted it to not have a perfectly straight line on my water bottle. Now, if you are using your rectangle for the purpose of clipping your design, I want you to come to that width option and go ahead and put a little plus sign after the inch and then do 0.25. So you're just going to add 1/4 of an inch on there, and that's going to give you enough room to trim. You'll notice that when I line that up, it lines up perfectly with the design that I already have because this design has been sized already. Now, you are also going to clip your design into that rectangle. I don't need to do that with the design that I chose today, but in general, if you are trying to clip in a photo or a digital paper, you are going to clip it inside of here so that it will be cropped accordingly for your specific project. Make sure that with that rectangle, you come to the color tab, select that open circle, choose no fill, and then with the filled circle, you can either do white or you can do no fill. Both are good options. When you have no color fill, the only way you'll be able to see that layer is when you have it selected and you get that blue boundary box. Now I already have these lined up on top of each other, but if I didn't, I would click and drag and I would come to my alignment tool, which is this bar graph icon, and I would select align center and then align center again and apply. So I already have all these lined up. All we have to do is clip this into our rectangle. And again, this is the steps that you will follow if you're using a photo or digital paper, anything of that nature. Click on the icon of your design layer. Click and drag it so that the cursor is touching the name of the layer you want to clip into, which is our rectangle. You'll now see that this is clipped inside. It's a little group. If you want to edit the placement of the design layer or the sizing, you want to open up that group and select that layer. So from here, I can like resize this, center it. So if I wanted to have it more like that, that would be an option. Makes it nice and easy and flexible to make sure that you're getting all of the coverage for any design that you want. And it avoids a too common mistake that people make where they take a design layer or photo and they try and like smush it, something like this, so it will fit within a certain substrate. You don't want to do that. You don't want to skew your artwork. It does not look good. You always want to use strategic cropping to make any type of artwork work with a specific substrate. So now that we have that all set, we're just going to go ahead and rotate this on the page. We can do that with our rotational tool at the top there. And I always like to center everything. It's just my personal choice before printing. Once you have everything ready to go and you're satisfied, come to File and then Print. You're going to select your printer from your drop-down menu and then select the Properties tab. If you have a converted sublimation printer, this is where you will pick your ICC profile, your paper settings, your color correction, and anything else that you have to choose. I'm using the Epson SureColor F57D Pro sublimation printer from Johnson's Plastics Plus. This printer is ready to go out of the box once you get the initial setup done. So the only thing that I have to do is just make sure that my paper size is correct and choose my paper source. So it already shows that it's letter size. That's perfect. Underneath source, I want to choose my auto sheet feeder, and then my media type is going to be rigid since this is a hard substrate. Now I do not need a print preview because I already can see that I have things set up correctly. And the default setting is that the image is mirrored, but in your printer, be sure to check that mirror image is selected. Lastly, I always like to just double check to make sure this little A here is the correct orientation so that it is properly demonstrating how my paper will feed into the printer. I'm bringing this up because we have a lot of people who do random things when they're setting up their document, like have their page going in a different orientation than it prints, and without fail they end up with mistakes happening with their print. So this is just kind of to alleviate all of that and alleviate the potential error, potential wasted ink, transfer, all of that. So once all of your settings have been selected, you can click OK. You have a print preview right here in Affinity for another point to check before you hit OK again. And once you hit that OK again in Affinity, it's going to send this off to print. Once your transfer is printed, you're going to go ahead and trim off all of the excess and then line it up on your substrate
of course, double checking that it's a good fit. So we can see on mine, I've got a bit more of an overlap than I would like. Let me get that on the camera for you. We just want a little hairline overlap, so I'm going to want to trim that and trim off that little bit of excess. This is why we print extra though, because we do want to make sure that we have room to trim so we can get that perfect lineup. So now that I've trimmed that little bit of extra off, I've got a nice, just a subtle overlap. That's always what we're going for. And we're going to center this on our water bottle. Now, if you recall, with this water bottle, one of the things we have to be mindful of is how this rounds at the top, and it starts rounding right about here. So we're kind of just balancing our design in between there. So once you have it set, you're going to hold it nice and tight and add some tape. I always like to start at the top of my seam line and then pinch it really close in the middle, do the middle, and then do the end, and then come back through and do the spaces in between. And I like to make sure that when I do it, it overlaps down the bottom. Now that piece was not good, as we can see, because my paper's got a gap. So let's try that again. There is a little tool on the market, I will link it below the video, called the Pinch Perfect, and they have like a duplicate of it on Amazon as well. But it actually wraps around and pinches your paper. If you have mobility issues or grip issues with something like this, definitely check it out. It's a fairly inexpensive tool, and like I said, it just kind of wraps around and clamps so that you can successfully get your transfer nice and tight. Anytime we do anything in our convection toaster oven with shrink wrap, we always want to make sure that our transfer is nice and flush, no gaps around the edges, no rounding. Now I'm going to use I think this is for a 15-ounce tumbler, this shrink wrap. It's definitely not a 20-ounce tumbler shrink wrap, but I had it. I'm pretty sure it's one I bought on accident. Either way, it fits perfectly. So we're going to go ahead and shrink wrap that on. I always like to do the top part and the bottom part first and then seal up the middle. That way I don't end up with my shrink wrap creeping down. That's the worst. So we just hold it as we do that bottom part, and then we'll come back up here. And then do all through the middle. Now I already have another one of these ready to go because I am printing 2 of them. These particular water bottles are not the double walled like the stainless steel tumblers are, like the 40-ounce tumblers, the 20-ounce tumblers that you're used to. So these are going to require less time. You don't necessarily need to adjust your temperature. Mine is set to 400, but it runs cool, so it's actually 385. But you were going to do 2 minutes less than you do your 20-ounce tumblers. So for me, I'm only going to be baking these for 4 to 5 minutes, and because I have 2 of them. If I was just going to do one, I would probably do the 4 minutes. I'm going to do the 5, and I'm just going to check it and see if I need to do an extra minute. But because these are not as thick, they're going to transfer a bit faster, so we don't need to do that longer time like we would do with our 20-ounce tumblers, 40-ounce, 30-ounce, and so on. So let's go ahead and set them in there. I always like to balance mine on my little oven grate. And as I said, we are going to let this go for 4 to 5 minutes. Our 5-minute timer just went off, and these should be done, but since they are metal, we can go ahead and just double check. We can have a look at how our transfer is looking all the way around, and that will give us a good baseline. It looks evenly transferred, so I'm going to assume that these are done. Hot. I'm going to pull them out, and we're going to let them cool until they're about warm, and that will be an opportune time for us to peel off our shrink wrap and our transfer. So I already went ahead and peeled one because I wanted to really be sure everything transferred well, and it looks fantastic. So we can go ahead and do the other one. So I like to just go at the bottom and take my box cutter. Make sure that you're going in flush and you're pushing up, not into your tumbler, to give you a good starting point. And then if you've folded your tape over, if you can't get it up with your nail, I like to do this overlapping and fold over because most of the time you can pull it all the way down. It's just for some reason every time I do a video it never wants to work. I swear it works. Other people do it too. All right, there we go. See, it worked that time. All right, do we get all our shrink wrap tape off? Very nice. So we got two. They look fantastic. Nice rich black, that's what we're always looking for. Anytime we do black, we want to make sure that that black looks very black. A lot of people end up struggling with that. Usually it's just that you need more time, but you want to be careful not to have too much time because then you'll end up with discoloration. So there are your water bottles. Where are our lids? We've got our little lids with the straws. And there we have it. Some excellent water bottles, great for kids, great for back to school, sports seasons, all of those things, and also great for promotional items. Be sure to check out our marketing guide exclusively in the Sub That Learning Library app, and check out all of the materials that we used today in the video description. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a great day.